Welcome to the IGDP. Name's Hayes, and on this podcast we will discuss the experiences and life of indie game developers as they work towards making their dream games a reality. Hopefully we'll learn something along the way. On today's episode, we're visited by Ryan from Polar Tabby Interactive Inc., developer and writer of the game Catlandia: Crisis at Fort Pawprint, an RPG with customizable cats that has just recently received a big content patch, so make sure to go check it out on Steam. We'll be talking about Catlandia, but we will also be talking about Ryan's past, present, and future in game development, what his favorite games are, and we'll talk a little bit about his pets. Make sure to go check out Ryan on Twitter, at RyAwesome, the company Polar Tabby Interactive Inc., which is at Polar Tabby, and most importantly, Catlandia on Twitter at Catlandia Game. The game is also available on Steam, itch.io, Android, and the Apple Store. Links are in the description. Enjoy the podcast. So hi Ryan, thanks for coming onto the podcast.
No problem.
So you may know the drill already. I usually start with a quick fire round, so you just answer the questions as quickly as possible. Are you ready?
Sounds fun. Let's go.
Alright, Gears of War or Halo?
Halo, but I've played very little of either.
Beer or cider?
Beer.
Autumn or spring?
Autumn.
Favorite food?
Ooh, sandwiches. Is that okay? It's pretty broad.
That's a weird food, but sure. Counter-Strike or Overwatch?
Counter-Strike, I've not played Overwatch.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
RPGs or MMORPGs?
RPGs.
Okay. Uplay or Origin?
Uplay?
Any particular reason you chose Uplay over Origin?
I've never used Origin.
Okay, all right. Well, they're both
It might be. Okay.
Oh yeah, tea or coffee?
Tea.
Okay. Oh, I'm surprised. That's good. I'm more of a tea man myself too.
Yeah. I'm originally from the UK. Not that I really drank tea too much there, but I just never got into coffee at all. Unless it has like a ton of sugar in it.
Well, then it's not really tea anymore. It's just sugar water with herbs.
Oh, tea without sugar is fine. Yeah, tea without sugar is fine. Coffee, I need a ton of sugar.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, well, let's get to know you. How old are you, and where are you located? What's your current occupation? Tell me about yourself.
Yeah, 33. I live in Edmonton, Alberta. I just started a job at a VR company, doing the marketing. So that's what I do in my kind of day life. Prior to that, I worked in a marketing agency for a couple of years. So that's where my professional expertise has been, at least in marketing.
All right, but you said you were in the UK originally, or you were born there. Why did you leave?
I left because my mom met a Canadian guy, and so we all moved to Canada.
How young were you?
I was 17 then.
Okay. So it wasn't like a 5-year-old being forced into Canada or anything.
No. I was almost an adult. I have mostly lost my accent, but there are a couple of words here and there that people tend to just kind of stop and think I'm kind of trailing off there. Yeah, there's a couple of words that don't quite sound like they're Canadian.
Well, I can't really tell where you're from with your accent right now. It's kind of strange. I wouldn't believe it if you didn't have a backstory anyway.
Yeah. Well, when I visit the UK, I sound like an American because they typically can't distinguish the accents too well. And then after like 2 weeks, I kind of start sounding half English again.
Yeah, you're picking up on old habits.
Yeah.
So what do you like best? Did you like the UK best or Canada?
I think I would say like Canada more, but the UK is a wonderful place to visit. But the problem I have now is the UK is very small compared to Canada, but there's so many things to do there. There's so many things to see. So whenever I visit, there's just no time to even nearly get to the amount of things that I want to do and see. And I feel like if I'd stayed there, I would have had a lot of ability to just kind of roam around and see all that stuff. Whereas here in Alberta, we have incredibly beautiful mountains and many other places actually that people don't know so much about, but it takes like 3 hours to get anywhere. So so it's a much different kind of experience.
Do you still have family in the UK?
Yeah, my dad's side is all there.
Aha, okay. Do you visit often, or how often do you go to the UK?
I think I've been back 3 or 4 times since I left, so that was like 16 years ago now. I was
Oh,
planning to go this year, but
yeah.
international travel, especially to the UK right now, does not sound like an amazing idea. So that's on the
No.
back burner.
But that's not very often that you go home, or sorry, not home for you, but go back to the UK.
Yeah. I mean, the problem there is, of course, there's so many other places in the world that I want to visit as well. So I kind of have to
True.
alternate on vacations.
Yeah, doesn't it take quite a while? Because I've never been to the US, and I know Canada's not the US, but like flight distance, it's quite far, isn't it?
Yeah, getting to Europe is like 8 to 10 hours or something. And the past couple times
Jesus.
I've done it too, I've had a quick stop in Iceland,
Mm-hmm.
mostly to take advantage of the Canada layover deal that they have. So I've been able to spend a bit of time in Iceland as well. But it's a large trip either way.
Hmm. But hopefully you get to sleep most of the way, don't you?
I have a really hard time sleeping on planes, actually. Except that there was one time on a flight where I pretended to sleep the entire way because the guy sitting next to me was incredibly annoying.
Oh, was
And
he
so
talking to you,
he
or?
he was. Do you know the joke where it's like, you've got some up dog on you there, and then the person's
Ah,
supposed to
God,
say, "What's
fuck
up?"
off.
Yeah, yeah. He kept doing that to everybody, and so as soon as he sat down, I just started to pretend to sleep, and it sucked. But
Oh,
but
no.
I didn't want to hear that. I didn't have that joke told to me 7 times, so I just dealt with it.
Oh, that is hilarious. Not the up dog joke, but I can't imagine going through that myself.
Yeah.
Um, but back to the topic at hand, video games. So yeah, you have worked on a game about cats called Catlandia: Crisis at Fort Paw Print. That's hard to say. Um, so what role did you have in developing that game?
I'd say I was basically lead design slash director for the project. I came up with the idea along with a friend who was involved for a little while but later left. We had a couple of other collaborators at the time, and then a couple people came on, a couple of people left throughout the project. I think about 7 or 8 people were involved total, and the final team
Mm-hmm.
was 5 of us. So originally, I was just going to do the writing and design because I felt like that was a good use of my skills. And basically, then the 2 people that I had for programming dropped out. So I figured if
Oh.
this game was going to happen, I'd have to learn how to program myself, which I'd done a little bit of in school and as a hobby beforehand, but not nearly to the extent that I ended up doing for Catlandia. So I ended up doing all the programming as well, or like
Oh, wow.
95% of it. And yeah, all the writing, all the quests. I had a guy come on Kent, who took care of a lot of the combat balancing and design and the level design. And we had an artist called Jess who did all the art. And then, oh yeah, of course, another Ryan Steele did all the sound and music. I met him in a game jam, and I approached him a year or so later, and I was like, "Hey, I'm working on this cat game. I could really use
Mm.
some music. Would you be interested?" And he said, "I think I would be very interested." So he did all that. And then we had another guy come on fairly late into the project, but he was able to help out a bit here and there, called Kyle.
Mm.
Yeah, so that was what the team ended up being. I guess I came up with the idea along with a friend, and I kind of led us all to the end after 5 years.
Mm. But I mean, there were a lot of people going in and out of the project during that time then.
Yeah, we started
Or,
with 5. 3 of those original 5 dropped out, and then 3 more came on.
aha, okay.
Yeah.
That's good throughput.
Yeah, yeah.
At least you replaced them.
I certainly don't blame the people that dropped out, because it turned out to be a lot more of a challenge than. I mean, I should have known, but it turned out to be a
Yeah,
lot
well,
more of a challenge than I was expecting. I'll tell you a kind of a story about it a little bit before that. So our original idea was actually going to be a point and click adventure game that
mm-hmm.
I still think would be a cool idea. So I don't really talk too much about it, just in case I end up using it. But
Sure.
after some planning of that, we got talking and for some reason figured that it would be easier to do a 2D RPG before it before doing this point and click adventure game. And to be honest,
Okay.
I don't want to minimize how difficult point and click adventure games would be, but they at least wouldn't have like an entire combat mechanic to figure out. So that was a terrible idea, but we marched ahead with it. At the time as well, there weren't many cat games. I think there's a lot more now, but we were talking and we were speaking of planes. Actually, I think me and the original other person, Abby, were talking. We both just come off vacations, and we had this experience of wanting to get just like kind of a narrative sort of game on our phones that we could play on the flight and then just kind of put down and be done with when we arrived at our destinations. And at least back then, 2015, there weren't too many options. There were a few, but then they required you to like download additional chunks of the game at various points. And so we were super naive, but we were like, well, maybe we could make one. And so originally we had the idea of it being mobile first, and we ultimately did release on mobile platforms. But I think we also we got a lot of people asking us if it was going to be on Steam. So pretty early on, we anticipated doing that as well. And yeah, there's another thing that I think we probably should have known. It's a lot harder to release for 3 different platforms than it is for one.
Yeah.
I guess 4 technically: PC, Mac, iOS, and Android. Yeah, that was the whole thing too.
I mean, we're gonna get more into the game as well, like gameplay and stuff like that. But I have to ask you, what's the story behind your interest in game development? Why did you end up making a cat game in the first place?
I'll tell you I'll I'll give you like the entire story from the very beginning, I guess, because why not? We got plenty of time.
Yeah, sure.
I remember.
That's the point.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, like 8 or 9 or something. Me and my friends would kind of draw these levels on paper that we were like, this is going to be our video game. And we'd have like a piece of paper that showed one chunk of a level, and like we were all playing like SNES, Genesis / Mega Drive, and maybe PS1 by then. I don't think so, but maybe. So that was kind of the style that was our paradigm. So it would be like a piece of paper for one chunk of a level, and then you'd get to the end of that and you go into the next page, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think like the idea that this would be a fun thing was always something that I had. And then I, went to high school, college. I ended up getting a lot into writing at the university. I had done a bit of programming here and there, like I said, and I think the idea of making a game was something that came up every so often. And I remember there was one point, I think around in like 2011 or 2012, when I like that said, okay, I'm going to take this seriously now. I'm going to make a game like from scratch. And by like from scratch, there's various different like places from which you could say from scratch, but like I was talking about like not even using like an engine like Unity. I don't even remember what I was doing, but it was like C++, and it was a waste of time. I was able to get an image to move across the screen and have a very rudimentary walking animation. And then I was trying to figure out like, how do I get like smooth movement when it butts up against an edge or something? And then I just kind of dropped it because it was a lot. And then like 3 years later, I started having conversations with these friends that I think the original team actually we all met at the student newspaper at the University of Alberta, the Gateway, where I'd been a writer and editor. And yeah, so we all met there, and we were all pretty creative people. And I learned that there were engines now that could be used for free to make video games without having to figure out those those like fundamental problems of how to put an image on a screen. So so that's kind of the entire journey. I think I always kind of felt like it would be a fun thing to do, and at some point it became possible for small teams to make pretty cool games.
But why did you decide to go, like, your education is not based in programming or game development specifically, is it?
No, my degree is actually in physics. And while I really enjoy science on just kind of a curiosity level,
Mm.
I also learned during my degree that I didn't want to be a working physicist, nor I think could I have been a working physicist, which is what led me to kind of going back to earlier interests of writing, which I also kind of had as a kid as well, and that led to um, hanging out at the Gateway for a few years and kind of getting my first professional writing done there.
Okay. Physics.
Yeah, and so then, yeah, yeah, I still love physics. I think it's fascinating, but I don't want to do it.
But now you work, or you're gonna work with marketing at a VR company.
Yeah,
You've been around the block, I have to say.
yeah, I call it never really knowing what to do with my life, I guess.
Oh, but at least you've made a game. That's more than other people can brag about, to be honest.
I have, and I'm really happy about that. Like I said, it was a 5-year process. So there were times where I really didn't do any work at all for months at a time, and it just became this like thing that I wanted to do sometime. And then there were times where I got more serious. I would say the first couple years were on and off learning how to make a game at all, and then the last couple years were getting a bit more serious about finishing it.
Hmm. But how long have you been doing game development for then? Has it only been Catlandia, or did you work on something prior to that?
I would say in a significant way, only Catlandia.
Mm.
I did make a Twine game in like 2015 or something. It was incredibly niche. It was about the provincial election in Alberta,
Oh,
and I don't think anybody should try to track that down. I don't know if it's even accessible
okay.
anymore.
What kind of game was that, if I can ask? Like the gameplay?
Yeah, it was made on Twine, so it was text based. Basically, I used the system to kind of make an interactive story. It had like 8 different endings. Some parts are incredibly inappropriate and not safe for work.
Okay.
I think a few hundred people clicked on the link at least. I don't know who actually got to
It's
the
like
end.
some Newgrounds shovelware tier game, or what would you say that is?
It was a game made for a very select group of people where they have an interest in the provincial election in Alberta in 2015, and in games and in I don't know,
Yeah, I think that's the
comedy
most
of
specific demographic I've
yeah,
ever heard.
yeah, with also an interest in comedy of very poor taste.
Yeah, so bad. Yeah, poor taste, bad humor, and the election in whatever Alberta. I don't understand, but okay.
Yeah, like I said, it's really not worth trying to find. I don't even
No.
know if I have a copy anymore. But I did. It was like I don't remember what the word count was, but I remember figuring out it was like novella length.
Oh wow.
It took me like 3 weeks of doing like furiously after my job, just putting words on this page and creating this thing that I knew from the very start very few people would be interested in.
Well, that's when you make your best work. You don't do it for anyone else. It's just for you, with your own crazy thoughts and ideas.
I guess so. Besides that, I did a couple of game jams here and there, but Catlandia is the only significant project that I've worked on.
But I want to ask a bit about the game jams. What role did you have during the game jams?
Yeah, typically, I think I've done 3 of these now. Typically, writer slash sort of programmer, depending on the team makeup. It's difficult because when you're trying to make a game in like 72 hours, there isn't really always much time or scope for putting a lot of narrative into some of these games.
No.
So that's why I've also kind of ended up doing a bit of programming for some of them.
Yeah, because I was gonna ask. Like, I've never participated in a game jam. I don't know how I would ever find the time. But it's like a writer doesn't really sound like something that makes sense to me to have on the team. Like, if you only have 72 hours.
Yeah, I've seen some projects where they've use it pretty well.
Mhm.
I think maybe I just don't have like kind of the game jam experience to know how a writer could be used in that context, unless I don't know. It's always difficult because you spend a couple of hours just kind of talking over ideas, and it's kind of hard to coalesce sometimes into like the idea that we're gonna do.
Yeah.
And then it's And then people often have different expectations of what the others are doing and how big their parts are going to be and how and when they need to be integrated. And I'm certainly guilty of that myself. Yeah, I really want to get back to doing another game jam at some point, but for me, I think the in-person nature of it is really a huge part of the pull of it. So yeah, with COVID, pretty much all game jams have been remote, and I certainly applaud people who are doing that. And yeah, but it's just not a format I think that's for me. So
I get that.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the opportunity to be in a room with people for 16 hours again.
Okay, that's a bit all right. Hotbox with them. Woo.
Yeah.
So, what are some of your favorite video games?
Yeah. I would probably be lying if I didn't say that the Dark Souls series wouldn't currently have the top spot in my head. I remember originally playing Demon Souls a little bit of time after it released, but before Dark Souls was released, and I think it was like around Halloween time, and I had like a break from college at the time. And I think I was kind of blown away because it had been a long time since I'd found like a really compelling new game formula. And so then I was like, day one, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3. I really love how the worlds are super interconnected, and you can go wandering off on the map for like 3 hours, and then you open a door and all of a sudden you're back at like Firelink Shrine or something. And I really enjoy the challenge. Like I certainly die a lot, like I think most people do. But spending like an hour on a boss and dying and dying and dying, and then figuring out how to do it and winning, I think that's like one of the most awesome feelings of like video game accomplishment that I've had. And the way that it's set up, that happens several times per game. I think that's what I really like. It's a really cool sense of accomplishment, along with really cool world building and world design.
I'm trying to hold in my little, or not like, I'm excited. I'm glad to hear someone else is also like really sold on the Dark Souls or just Souls genre. So what did you think of Bloodborne?
I really love Bloodborne. Actually, if I had to pick like one game of that kind of genre, I would actually pick Bloodborne as my favorite, because I think it works as a standalone game so well. It's a really nice kind of reinvention of the mechanics with a more kind of horror setting. I loved Bloodborne as well.
So speaking of those games, your favorite games, you say mechanics, like what is it in particular you enjoy about the game? Like is it the music or is it the gameplay? What do you think really makes it stand out? Or maybe it's just the whole thing. What matters?
Yeah, it certainly does all come together. In terms of the gameplay though, I think what's really cool is how many different weapons and playstyles are viable. I started off in Demon Souls and Dark Souls as like a shield and sword kind of character, and
of course
I used a shield all the time. It was like such a core part of the characters that I played. And then when I did play Bloodborne and they give you that one really crappy shield as a joke, I had to get good at dodging. And then when I went back and replayed Dark Souls 2 at some point, and when I played Dark Souls 3 the first time, I just committed to the dodging, and then I found that there was just like a whole new way of playing these games as well.
So then Dex or strength? Just quickly asking.
Dex.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. But I recently was actually playing Dark Souls 3 again because I figured it's time to just get that platinum trophy and not have that that unaccomplished thing hanging in my mind. And I decided to go all in on pyromancy. I had a pyromancer glove in both hands.
Why?
And I just made it work. Why? I don't know, but it was really stupid but fun.
I gotta say, one of my bucket list goals is to get the Dark Soul in Dark Souls 1 and 3. I can't stand the second one though, but I really need that achievement. But
yeah,
what do you think of the second one? Actually,
the second one, I like it, but if I had to rank them, I'd say 1 and 3 are about the same, and then 2 is below. definitely I felt a bit of a weirdness in the layout of the world, and I don't really buy that it's just because time and space are convoluted.
No.
Going up like the elevator in Earthen Peak and ending up like in the big fire lake was just
Yeah, that was
really
bizarre.
jarring,
Yeah.
considering how well Dark Souls 1 world was laid out. That did come across as a bit weird. But there's a ton of content if you just want to dive into a super big long game. So I give it points there.
Hmm. Did you play the DLCs for the second one?
I did. Yeah,
Okay.
I did.
Did you like those?
Everything except for that reindeer part.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I guess we can't spoil
That was
everybody.
awful.
But what did you think about the Dark Souls 3 DLCs?
I only played through them once.
Mhm.
I enjoyed them. I was more into the Ring City than Ariandel.
Mm.
I guess I know a lot of people like the boss at the end of Ariandel, but the feel of the Ring City, without getting too spoilery, just the atmosphere that presented, that
Yeah.
really worked for me.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear it. Like, oh, I'm so glad you love it too. All right, I could talk to you about that for an entire hour, but I'm not gonna go there. So unrelated to games, what's your favorite genre of music?
Interesting question.
If that's difficult, you can also say a favorite artist if it becomes too generic.
Okay. If I had to say a favorite artist, it's Radiohead.
Okay.
I've liked them since I was a teenager. I followed them ever since. It was Hail to the Thief was the first album that I bought on CD, as we did then. And I quickly dived into the rest of their collection at the time and followed them ever since. I've also really been into Nine Inch Nails a lot, and I think what I really appreciate there is like it was the right music when I was an angsty teen, and it's as they've evolved to their sound, it's still the right music for me now as an older person.
You don't feel as angsty, and they also
And I feel as
updated
angsty,
it.
and I don't think they sound angry at points, especially in one of the more recent releases. But a lot of the music I think is just really interesting, atmospheric, and more mature, I guess, in an emotional way.
So do you like classical music as well, or
I can't say that I've listened to a lot of classical music.
what did you think of the music in the Souls games?
I think it was really fitting for the Souls games. To be honest, besides the music for Gwyn in the first one, the only ones that really kind of stick in my head are from Dark Souls 3, specifically that track that plays for, assuming I'm pronouncing it right, Udex Gundyr at the beginning.
Yeah.
That just like really wakes you up, the fight and the music.
It scared the shit out of you when you go in there.
Yeah, so that really sticks out. I got the release of Dark Souls 3 with the soundtrack disc, but I've never actually listened to it. But it's sitting there, and I feel like I will at some point.
When you get older, maybe. You need a dramatic pick-me-up. Yeah, but speaking of music, what's the best work environment for you when you, like, it doesn't matter if it's game development work, but do you have music on? Do you like being alone? I know that you like working together in a room with other people for 16 hours, but yeah, if that's not possible, yeah, what's your best work environment?
Yeah. I enjoy an office setting where other people are around, but we're generally doing our own thing and can kind of pop up every so often. I typically have like one headphone in and one off just in case anyone says something. With my current job, I'm working from home though, so it's just me and my girlfriend. So we're just hanging out all day while we work. I do often put headphones in. Lately, I've been listening to a lot of lo-fi video game remix playlists. I've just been getting really into those. I've gone through. There's a Final Fantasy VII one I like. There's a Final Fantasy VI one that I like. What else? There's Chrono Trigger one that I really like. And for the longest time as well, I would work with the soundtrack from Death Stranding.
Okay.
I found that music was really, really good at just kind of being there and being really enjoyable, but letting you focus.
So what's your opinion on the open office format? Like having open offices instead of cubicles?
Yeah. With the right people, I don't mind it.
Hmm.
It's got to be the right people though, and with the right understanding that like ultimately everyone's got to get some work done. So we can have breaks and conversations, but we need to be able to you need people to respect that if it looks like you're hard at work, you should probably just let you be hard at work.
Okay, that's a good opinion on that. Other than I just hate it. Yeah, so you answered this, but yes, unrelated. Do you own any cats?
I own one amazing cat. His name is Chauncey. He's a Siberian. He's enormous. He's like 2 armfuls if you want to hold
Oh
him.
God.
Yeah, incredibly fluffy. And you know how a lot of cats, they'll present their belly for belly rubs, but you're only going to get like 5 to 10 seconds before they decide it's time to attack. This guy turns on his back and invites it and just lets it go as long as you want it to. He loves it.
Wow. But not for anyone, right?
Yeah.
Just for you.
We haven't had a lot of visitors since we got him due to COVID, but for everyone so far, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've had him for about 1.5 years now, I think.
Oh, it was very recent.
Maybe 2. Almost 2. Yeah.
Why'd you jump the gun on buying a cat? Was it the game's release or what convinced you?
I've always loved cats. And we had a pet plan, so I actually have 2 dogs as well. We got our Shiba.
You have a
Hershey
Shiba? Oh, cute.
Super cute, but just a warning to anyone considering a Shiba. They have personalities. That can be good, that can be bad. I like it, but the reality of a Shiba is not just the meme.
No.
They're very independent. They're very stubborn. They're intelligent, so they know what you want them to do, but they just might not want to do it, especially if that means it's time to go home from the dog park. So we got her about 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago. And then we got Chauncey about 6 months or so later. And we have another dog as well called Bombo. He's a Kazond or Keeshond. Nobody really seems to be agreed on how you say that, but he's an incredibly fluffy boy. We've had him he's almost 1. We've had him for about 8 months, I guess. And he's in the rebellious teen phase right now. So
okay, all right.
That's pretty difficult to deal with.
That's a lot of pets to get in a short amount of time.
Yeah, we were talking about it forever, and then we just started getting them, and they're all about the same age, so they're all growing up together. That was the plan we hoped for.
Do they get along?
And if by get along you mean run around really, really fast, bump into things, jump on each other, bite each other in a playful way, then yes, they do.
Okay, good. So again, back to the games. What's your dream scenario regarding game development? And some of these examples might be being financially independent, making a dream game of yours, or owning a company, or what's your dream scenario?
Yeah, I mean, dream scenario is somebody sees the work that I've done and they're like, I'm going to give you like several $1 million to fund a studio for a while. And then I just get to make it in a more serious way. Like right now, it's very much done after hours at my day job, during the weekends, evenings, even some vacations.
Right.
So yeah, if we're asking like what the dream is and there are no limits, then I'd love to be able to kind of run a sustainable indie level studio. Honestly, I'm very much into AAA games as a player, but I'm not sure how much I'd want to be involved as a creator. I really like the indie thing, I guess. Working on relatively smaller projects, so it's smaller scope, but just being able to explore with a bit more freedom.
Yeah, and you're not just a cog in a machine like you would be at DICE or other large companies.
Yeah. I mean, that said, if a large company wants to give me a really good salary to be a cog in a machine, we can talk, but
of course.
Yeah, but if we're talking like the top dream, then of course it would be being able to run something by itself.
Yeah, so we've been talking a bit about your game, Catlandia, Crisis at Fort Pawprint. I can't say that just right out. So tell me a bit about the game, like the gameplay, the art style, intended platforms, and what inspired it outside of your love for cats.
Yeah. What inspired it was a conversation over beers, where we we felt that there weren't enough cat games, and we felt that, like I said, we felt that for some reason a 2D RPG would be easier to make than a point-and-click adventure game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what it is, it's a 2D RPG with cats. That's the super short elevator pitch, and that seems to be enough to get a lot of people's attention.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know, there aren't actually any other games out there that are too similar in kind of the combination of the art style, the gameplay style, and all that. But the idea was we would try to make a 2D RPG kind of in the style of older games like Chrono Trigger or the SNES Final Fantasy games.
Mm-hmm.
So turn-based, kind of encounter-based, dungeon exploration based, although by dungeon I mean very bright woods.
It should be safe for cats.
And yeah, and so the idea was basically we'll make it with really cute art, and that's where Jess has been really good, really amazing. It's a very, very cute art style, and we'll have a story there. So the original idea would probably be about 5 times the size of what the game ended up being, and the story of every indie game's life is you realize that's not possible if you ever want to actually release it. So we scaled down and scaled down and scaled down, and eventually we had a concept that was that included a hub area called Pawprint, and one kind of dungeon area called Whisker Woods, which has multiple screens on it that you can kind of traverse. We kind of decided on one main villain for the game, and a couple of kind of smaller villains. Relatively simple plot, but with a hint that maybe there's something below the surface that might be explored in the future.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and as we were scaling down to this, we started to think of it in terms of, we called that Catlandia prologue for a long time. The idea being that it would be kind of a 1 to 2 hour introduction to what we wanted to do for this longer version of the game. And I think that kind of turned into, we don't say it, but we kind of think of it as maybe an episode. So I think now we're kind of thinking it could be, the first episode in potentially a series.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's kind of how that kind of came about.
But so how much, it's turn-based, but how much RPG elements does it have? Do you level up stats? Do you have an inventory? Like, how advanced is it?
Yeah, you can find items. Items can be used to harm enemies in battle, heal you in battle. There are skills, there are abilities that are based on the equipment that you're wearing. So I guess one thing, one interesting point is we, not really having any particular game industry experience when we started this, the design has always been a bit kind of floaty, in a I think a good way for the most part. I would sometimes just kind of get pieces of art that I hadn't really planned for, or pieces of music that I hadn't really planned for, and looked at it and just thought, oh, this is really cool. So let's make a whole system around this. I think that's how the costumes came about. I just kind of got some pieces of art from Jess where that looked like they could be worn on the body, or I think we were gonna do hats, and then she just gave me some like body costumes too, so I made it work. So you can put stuff on your head. There's a couple things like there's some bunny ears, there's a lime helmet, taken from that photo of a cat with the lime on its head. There's a couple of other things, and then there's some bodywear stuff. There's some super adorable sushi outfits that I really like. Some donut outfits. There's a banana suit.
But are these just cosmetics, or do they add gameplay elements?
Yeah, so basically the abilities that you have access to in the game depend on the costumes that you're wearing.
Okay.
So some costumes will come with some abilities, some will come with others. There's collars as well, although they aren't visible in game. They also kind of have the same thing, and then you can equip stuff. You can equip charms to the collars as well. So that's all there, and then the fighting is turn-based. There's 7 or so types of enemies, I think. If you include the bosses, maybe 8. I kind of forget. There's dogs, there's birds, and there's some raccoons that you fight. You can talk to other cats at camp. Some of them have little little small quests that you can do for them as well,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them are just kind of there for fun. Uh,
So, like,
yeah.
how long is the complete playtime? Like, so if I wanted to do all the side quests, how long would it take me to
Yeah.
complete the game?
I think it would take about 4 hours
Oh,
to complete the game. It was actually longer than we thought it would end up being. Yeah, that's another lesson learned. As as much time as it takes to make a large game, it also kind of takes a lot of time just to play through a game too. If you're reading things, if you're
mm.
thinking about the battles, if you're equipping things and kind of exploring all the nooks, it can take upwards of 4 hours, I think, for the game.
I mean, it's sounds like quite an advanced game. I was intending on playing it, but I was a bit late, so you're just gonna have to sell it to me, and then maybe I'll buy it right after. um,
Uh, yeah.
but yeah, you have it on Steam, I
Um,
saw, and on the phone. Does it work well on
yes.
the phone? Or was it intended to be
It
on the phone originally? Sorry, that was how I
yeah,
phrased that.
yeah. It was originally intended to be mobile first, but just in practice with the being having limited resources, it just became a lot more natural to do our major testing kind of on desktop and laptops,
Mm.
PC and Mac. So it does work on phones. The only thing that I had to do to the only real difference, I think, again, I haven't tested on all devices. I'm talking basically out of experience with my Pixel 2 XL, which is a bit old at this point.
Mm.
But the only thing that I had to change for phones was the minimap. For PC and Mac, the minimap updates basically every frame,
Mm.
and I just had to cut that down to every few frames for the phones in order for that to still be playable.
Okay.
Because otherwise, we were getting a lot of kind of stuttering.
Mm. But that's like you say update every frame. So I'm gonna have to ask you, what did you end up developing it in? Because you said you wanted to do things from scratch, but I assume you chose like an engine now for this game.
Oh yeah. When it came to Catlandia, we started on Unity,
Mhm.
and even then, I still had, I think, an idea in my head about we had to do everything from scratch from there.
Mhm.
And then 2 years later, when I was trying to tackle the dialogue and the quests and everything, I I learned that there was an amazing dialogue plugin out there called uh, Dialogue Manager, I think, by Pixel Crushers,
Okay.
and it was $60 and it solved all my problems. So my
Worth
attitude
it.
changed. Yeah, my attitude changed to like, yeah, it's totally cool to just buy some things sometimes and spend 10 hours trying to integrate that with your system rather than spending hundreds of hours trying to make a system from scratch for something the player is never going to notice.
True. And I mean, if it serves the purpose, and why? I mean, also coming from that you're not like a hardcore programmer, maybe that was the best choice you could make.
Yeah, for sure. All that time that I could have spent building that game would have delayed the game, because then I wouldn't have been able to spend time on the other things that had to be done uniquely.
Was there any or ever any point where you were working on the game full time?
No, it's always been a kind of a
Moonlighting thing.
after moonlighting thing. Yeah.
Okay. And you said, did it take 5 years to develop the game?
Yeah.
Okay. Just confirming. But I have read on your Twitter that you're currently working on something else for Catlandia. What is that?
Yeah, we're going to release that on October 29th, so I don't mind talking a bit about it now. Basically, we were talking about what to do next after the release of this game, which released in February. And what we ultimately decided to do was see how well we could do at basically just expanding the story content.
Mm-hmm.
So the having the dialogue system, the quests, the combat system, having kind of all the guts of the game in terms of kind of mechanics in place.
Mm-hmm.
The idea was like, how fast could we turn something around to expand the story by a couple of hours and just get it out. And so we're kind of looking at the summer, and then just various things led to October being a better time for the final release. But yeah, we've been working on a story update. So after you get to the end of the game right now, you just have like an open quest called Maintain Peace.
Okay.
And basically, when you get the update for the game, you'll be able to take a nap and advance that quest, which will lead into a new area. So it's connected to one of the existing areas. You'll be able to just go up to that spot and enter a new area. The setting is going to be kind of construction yard themed. So there's a lot of gravel around. There's some construction equipment and stuff. Some new items. You can get like an orange hard hat.
Nice.
Is it a yellow hard? It's yellow. It's a yellow hard hat. There's an orange vest, reflective vest. There's a couple of enemy variants. So we took our existing enemies and we gave them a couple of new abilities, and we gave them a couple of kind of graphical changes. So there's some raccoons that wear goggles now. There's some corgis that have little booties on.
Oh.
Yeah. And there's 2 new bosses as well. So there's just another couple of quests to go. So basically the idea here is one of the characters in the game, a friendly dog called Fetch, has sent a note to the cats that he's spotted some other dogs up to no good at the construction yard, and so you got to get up here and help out. So basically one of them set up residence in a kind of a half-finished tall building. And yeah, you just got to explore there, kick him out, and reclaim that for the cats.
Okay.
So from the team's perspective, the task was basically, let's see if we can update the story because 5 years is a long time, and I certainly don't want my next project to take 5 years. So it was given what we have now, how fast can we get something out? And the answer turned out to be about 8 months for, I think it's probably going to be 2 to 3 hours of gameplay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's just a good thing for us to know when we're planning our next project.
Yeah, I mean, if you could work on it full time, I don't assume it would take that long at all.
Oh yeah, yeah. There were a couple of times where I took like a week vacation, and I just kind of effectively worked on it full time, and I got so much done during those weeks.
Didn't it feel great?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the dream, man. Yeah, but speaking of, I'm looking forward to seeing this, but I have to ask, is it going to be free content to the game, or is it going to be DLC, or what's your plan with that?
Yeah, for everyone who owns the game right now, it's going to be free. It'll just be an update for the game that you can download via Steam. Yeah, so we'll have it on Steam. We'll have it on the iOS and Google Play stores, and I will also try to update the itch page, which we kind of hurriedly got on during the summer as well. Mm-hmm. So it'll be available from wherever you got it originally, totally free if you already paid for the game. And we're also gonna drop the soundtrack. That will be paid, but you can get all 29 tracks from both the original version of the game plus the update.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, so there's also new music in the update. It's a full thing.
Yeah,
okay.
New tracks. Yeah.
Cool. But then if you don't buy the game now, will you then have to buy the DLC or it as DLC if you don't buy the game now, or how? What did you mean with that?
Yeah, good question. No, it's just going to be included in the regular price of the game. So if you buy the game now, if you buy it later, you get it free either way.
All right. Yeah, speaking of your game, the dialogue system you said you bought a solution for, but what would you say was the most difficult thing about developing the game?
Definitely the combat system, because that was done entirely custom from scratch for Catlandia. Yeah, there's a lot of different things that went into that. I wanted to kind of emulate as many features from those old games as I could. So basic attacks, we originally had kind of the fence mechanic in there as well that we took out because it felt like one extra click that didn't need to be there. Getting the abilities in there according to the outfits that you're wearing, figuring out what all the abilities need to do, having status ailments as well, so poison, bleed, that kind of thing, sleep, figuring out how we wanted our there's a health bar, and then we call it an effort bar for your special abilities.
Cute.
Figuring out how we want to have that work. Yeah. Once I always felt it was pretty cute, but like basically your special abilities take effort to use because you're a cat and you really just want to sleep. You can always use a move regardless of how much you have left or how much it costs, but if you get to 0 effort, you basically have a chance of falling asleep.
Okay.
And so when you fall asleep, you regenerate a little bit of effort, but obviously you're asleep. So that's kind of the trade off there. So yeah, that was definitely the biggest thing, and that's where Kent helped out a lot as well. We did so much testing, trying to get the balance right, and even after release, we made a couple of changes too, as we kind of had more people playing for the first time besides our little circle. Having that, all the things that come into that, like experience, and at what point do you level up, how do you level up, what do you get, what do all the stats do, do all the stats need to be there, how do the stats interact with the enemies. I had no experience of making a battle system before this, so
I can imagine
to figure all that out.
It gets quite complex. So that was fast.
Yeah, that was definitely the most difficult thing, and for sure.
So, is there something in the game you're particularly proud of that you've done?
Some of the puns, although it's been so long since I've actually played through the basic version of the game, I can't really remember what puns are in there and what puns I just had for future use somewhere. So I don't want to give any examples in case I waste one. I wish I had more time to spend on the writing, but I'm pretty happy with what's there. We've taken the game to a couple of shows locally, or at least we did when that was still possible, when we were in development. And it was always really fun just to watch people play and then see them laugh at the right moments.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. If I wanted to maybe go a bit deeper there as well, it's I've noticed when we had the game in public that kids really seem to like it.
Okay.
And I think maybe conventional wisdom might be that a turn-based game, is that really going to appeal to kids when they can go play Fortnite or whatever, or Minecraft or whatever. And it turns out the kids that have sat down and played their game have actually gotten into it. And actually figured it out pretty well. My nephew really likes it, so that's nice too.
Yeah, maybe they're not also ADD riddled.
Need. I mean, at the end of the day, these are the games that I was playing when I was a kid too. So
yeah, just a bit prettier and less pixely.
Yeah, for sure.
If it's okay to ask this, has the game done how has the game done financially?
It has made nowhere near enough money to justify having been made, but that's not really why I think any of us got into making it. Obviously, I'd love for it to be a runaway success, but the entire time I've kept my expectations, I think, realistic, and I think it's kind of hit realistically where I hoped it might be by this time. But I would suspect that my relatively low financial expectations are not really in line with what a lot of people kind of dream about when they start making a game and they see the success of Angry Birds or Minecraft or whatever, and they're like, oh, why isn't my game just taking off and being an incredible success?
True. I'm
happy for the success that we have had. It's encouraging enough to want to continue to make games. It's it's not paying any bills, but it's nice. It's nice to have it done.
Which platform did it sell the most on?
It sold the most on Steam for sure.
Okay.
It's been downloaded the most on itch because we were part of their massive Black Lives Matter bundle over the summer. So we've had quite a lot of downloads there. And yeah, we were happy to donate the game for that cause. So
have you had any contact with publishers?
No, I've definitely thought about, I think everyone thinks about when the time might be right to talk to publishers. And I ultimately felt that for our first release, trying to convince anybody to give us money to publish a game, no matter how good it might look, is probably just not going to work, because they're going to look at the risk involved in the project with the experience of the people involved, and they're going to have other options, and that's fine. And I totally understand where that's coming from. In the future, maybe. I don't know what we're going to develop next. It might be Catlandia related, it might not. But it will be a second project. and I think a second project or a third project from a group of people who have successfully put out previous projects is going to be a much more easier sell. And ultimately, in terms of the resources that I'd want to put into doing that kind of thing versus development, it's been on the let's just do development side for now.
Yeah, I understand. You need someone else to do that kind of work, like preparing it for a publisher to look through and analyzing risk and all that.
Yeah,
I don't know why some people like doing that, but
yeah, I think if I stick at this for more years, I'm sure there'll come a time where that becomes the thing to do. But right now, it's just development.
No, it's also best just to actually do the thing you're trying to get publishers for. Like, it's better to just do some development and then get the publishers coming to you. Because when I spoke to Adrian, who you know, I mean, he's been in contact with publishers himself, but he just had a mobile game, like a small one. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's probably hope for you if you keep releasing chapters or content for Catlandia.
I guess I'd say that, in my kind of current professional life outside of game development, I'm pretty fulfilled. So I don't have I don't need to kind of make my game design hobby happen professionally, all or nothing, do or die. So it's nice to have this as a hobby right now. And obviously the dream is someone just gives me a ton of money to do whatever I want.
But that would be nice no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody is listening to this and they have like $7 million to just hand out to someone, no expectations, no nothing like that. They just want someone to make a game that they want to make, then my bank account is open.
Please, I'd like $1 million of that too. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you can have a cut because this will be where they heard it.
Okay, great. Let's talk a bit about the company, Polar Tabby Interactive Inc. What's the origin of the name?
We wanted... I guess first of all, I feel like I'm really bad at coming up with names. So whenever it's time to name a new thing, it's always a really frustrating thing. We wanted to have like the idea of a cat, given that our project right now is a cat game, but without necessarily branding ourselves as like the cat company. Having said that, I put a cat silhouette in the logo, and the polar part came from a desire to have some vague call out to the geographical location that we're in. We're nowhere near the pole, but Edmonton is one of the most largely populated northern cities in the world. So we wanted to have some kind of homage to that kind of idea in the name as well. So we went through a couple of options and we arrived at Polar Tabby for those reasons.
So you're a registered company, right?
Yes.
How long have you been in business for? Like, when did you register as a company?
We registered probably almost exactly a year ago. It was October 20 something in 2019.
And was that because you were planning on releasing the game soon at that time?
Yeah. Steam requires that you be a registered company, or at least I think. I might be a bit hazy on the details, but basically I never wanted it to be just like kind of a sole proprietorship. There's different kinds of companies. I wanted to be a registered corporation, and I think Steam at least requires that you be a kind of company. So we would need that for having a bank account and all that. So yeah, we registered last year.
Okay, and when was it you released the game again?
February
this year.
Of 2020.
It's quite recent then. When you start a company in Canada, do you need to put in inject some money to begin with, or how does that work?
It costs money to register the company. You don't need to have money in your bank account after that. In Alberta, it costs I think about $500 or so in total.
Oh,
that's gonna differ depending on where you are and what kind of company you're registering.
So, if there's one thing you could change about the game industry, what would it be?
The game industry?
Yes.
At the risk of maybe sounding a bit naive or not knowing what I'm talking about, No, you know what? Scratch that. I'm not afraid to say this one. This is a better one.
All right.
Crunch should not be a thing. I haven't worked in a professional game studio, so no, I haven't personally like experienced all the reasons why crunch happens, but and I know it happens in other industries as well. But I've worked enough in the professional world to know that if crunch is occurring for significant periods of time on like a routine basis, then there's probably something very wrong in the project management end of things. Whether that's the original scope and the pace at which they expected the work to be done, whether that's the pace it was actually done, whether it was any one of any other million reasons, you should really be able to plan your projects out with enough buffer that people are not working like 16-hour days for 3 weeks, for 3 months, for a year. You know, people, as fun as games are to make, people should, I think, first and foremost, be very cognizant of their work-life balance, and companies should respect that, because the alternative is people will burn out, and, you know, in the worst cases, will probably get some pretty severe mental illnesses from the whole situation, or trauma and things like that. So yeah, I think companies where this is routinely happening really need to look at why and figure out how to stop it. And I think what probably feeds into it as well is there's a certain amount of prestige element to having a job at one of these big companies. And I don't, you know, I'm not saying like it's a bad thing for there to be jobs where there is prestige attached. I think you should be super excited if you get to work on, you know, a big release game. But what that allows companies to do is, consciously or not, definitely in some places consciously, work people a lot harder than they need to be, because, you know, what are they going to do? Leave?
Exactly.
Yeah. Are they going to give this up? Are they going to give this cool job up?
No,
they can call the bluff, and there's going to be hundreds of other people waiting to fill that position. So yeah, if I could change something there, it would be not doing crunch.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone can disagree with that, except very greedy middle managers. But yeah, I think that's a good opinion to have. So what is something you love about developing games?
I think the thing that I love the most is looking at what I've currently got, having an idea, sitting down for like 3 hours, and then seeing that idea happen on the screen. It can be a small thing, but just having this idea for this new feature that you want to put into the thing, and then just sitting down and doing it and seeing it happen. And, you know, it doesn't always happen the way you want it to the first time, but one I'll give you one example because it's kind of fun. The first time we showed the game off was at an event in Edmonton called GDX in 2016. And what we had at the time was a single screen. There was grass, there was sky, there was a fence, and there were, I think, 4 cats that you can have very, very small conversations with.
Okay.
And even that, people were just like really excited to move the cat around the screen and just like talk to the cats, and they were really excited about like the idea. And I think that event, the reception that we got at that event, is really why we kept at it through the months of, you know, wondering whether or not we were good enough to make this thing. But the specific thing that came out of that, everybody was asking, can I make my own cat? And at the time, I'd kind of thought, you know, you're just going to get this set cat and he's going to have a name, and the name did stick. There is a name that the cat gets because I kind of want that part of the story to be a thing. Having said that, not necessarily a he, it could be a she, doesn't really matter.
All right.
And yeah, so basically everybody was asking, can I make my own cat? So 2 weeks later, you could make your own cat. I had put in, and this was like at the beginning of the project, so this really, can I swear?
Yeah, please. All you need.
This really shitty code is still in the game because I didn't know what I was doing, but it worked eventually. You could change your cat's body, you could change your cat's tail, you could change the legs, you could change the colors, you could change the patterns, You could change the ears. All this stuff was suddenly just there. At the time, you could choose any color you wanted to, so you could have like a hot pink cat.
Oh yeah.
I later, I later restricted the colors to somewhat realistic.
Okay.
Because the sliders were just too much bother to handle. Maybe in the future you could get dyes or something. I don't know.
Oh.
But basically 2 weeks later, I had this new system in front of me, and you could make your own cat, and it was just really cool to look at the old version of the game and then to look at this one where you could make whatever kind of cat you wanted.
I think it's a good feature, even if you have the same name or not. It's kind of nice to make your own character.
Yeah.
Even if it's a Shrek looking ass character when you don't have any limitations of the colors.
Yeah, no, it's just realistic cat colors for now.
Okay. Maybe a DLC just for cat color pack. That would be great.
Yeah, I made some pretty bad looking cats with those options.
Yeah, so do you have any practical advice for other people who want to go into indie game development?
I don't quite know where my answer is going to go. But let's just dive in here. I think the number one piece of advice that gets given to indie developers, especially people who are just kind of doing it as a hobby at first, is to have your first game be a very, 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 it's hard to emphasize how much, but a very, very small game with very, very simple mechanics. And I think I'm obligated to give that advice because, I look back and I'm really proud of having Catlandia, but I also wonder, instead of Catlandia, might I have had 5 games by now? Smaller, but might have had more games. And would that be better to have more smaller games than one bigger game? I don't know. Maybe. I think it probably depends on how you as a person are able to commit to a project and see it through all the way. If you think that you're pretty strong on that, and if you think you can spend 5 years working on one project and take it to completion, then by all means make a bigger game, because maybe it is better to have one more polished game than it is to have 5 smaller games. So I guess if I had to boil my advice down there, is really consider what kind of game you want to make and really be honest with yourself about the resources you have and the time you have. I think what really helped me get to the finish line is after the 2.5 year mark, I specifically set out time on my calendar to sit down and work on the game that I would always try to hit. If you think you've got that drive and you want to make a larger project, then go for it. If you're unsure, make a smaller game. I guess that's what I'd say. And even if you do want to make a larger project, still be really, really conscious of what small or large really means in your context. Because, like I said, Catlandia ended up being about 4 hours or so, which is actually longer than we thought originally. But with hindsight now, I guess I can say that the original idea that we had for Catlandia, we thought would take a player about 5 hours, but would have been at least 5 times larger than what we ended up making. So the math's really kind of all over the place. So I guess ultimately, if we had made that, it would have taken many, many more years to make, and it would have actually been about 20 or so hours of gameplay, which wasn't really what we were intending. So just be really conscious of how long you actually expect the game to be and how long you want to be working on it, and see if those numbers are actually in alignment or not.
All right. So last 2 questions. What else do you have planned for the future?
Yeah. So we're gonna drop this update on October 29th, and on a personal level, I'm gonna take a month to kind of flesh out a prototype idea that I've had as kind of a palate cleanser, because it's been so long just working on the one game. I've actually started this project already, and I have to keep tearing myself away from it to finish Catlandia's update. But I'm gonna just kind of take a month and see how much I can get done, and if there's something that I can release as kind of a demo at the end of that, then I'll release that. If not, it'll just kind of go back into the vault for a while. Afterwards, we're certainly going to look at another larger project to do at about the scale of what Catlandia was. I don't want to say what it will be, just in case we change our mind. But basically, the idea is I think the idea behind the update that we're dropping is iteration, and I think that's going to be the idea as well. It won't be an update to Catlandia, that much I can say for sure. Catlandia is going to be totally done, apart from bug fixes, after October 29th. But we'll start another project, I think, about the scale of Catlandia, maybe a bit more, using all the lessons that we've learned. And we certainly don't want to take 5 years to make the next one. So
No.
iteration is still the theme. However that will play out, we'll see.
All right. So where can people find you on social media?
Sure. You can find me on Twitter at RyAwesome. That's RY and then the word awesome. You can find Catlandia's accounts at Catlandia Game. I think we got Polar Tabby on there as well. Polar Tabby is just at Polar Tabby. Catlandia's website is catlandiagame.com. You can find the game on Steam for PC and Mac. You can find it on the iOS store. You can find it on the Google Play Store, and you can find it on itch.
All right. That was quick. Well, thanks a lot for coming on. It was very nice talking to you.
Thanks for having me on. It was a great conversation.
Good luck with everything in the future.
Thank you.